Imagine facing the chilling depths of an underwater pipeline, your survival hanging by a thread. You're battling against suffocating darkness and dwindling air, with little or no hope of surviving. Or imagine being sucked and decompressed by a sudden pressure shift into a rigged surface of an oily, tiny tube. What would you do? This is Fatal Tragedies, with 3 stories of people who were killed by suction. Number 1. The Piper Alpha Disaster. Piper Alpha was a big platform for getting oil from the ocean. It started in 1976, but on July 6, 1988, something terrible happened. There was a big boom and fire from oil and gas. The platform was eventually destroyed, and sadly, 167 people died. Even 2 perished on a rescue boat. Only 61 people would be able to escape. And even after constant searching, they still couldn't find 30 bodies. The total insured loss was about $3.4 billion, and at the time of the disaster, the platform accounted for approximately 10% of North Sea oil and gas production. It was in a deep, dark place in the water, about 474 feet down. It was made up of 4 modules separated by firewalls, and for safety reasons, the modules were organized so that the most dangerous operations were distant from the personnel areas. A later conversion from oil to gas processing broke this safety concept, with the result that sensitive areas were brought together. For example, gas compression occurred next to the control room, and this played a critical role in the accident. So what exactly happened? On the morning of July 6th, the fate of Piper Alpha's operations hinged on 2 condensate pumps, A and B. Pump A, slated for a 2-year overhaul, was out of commission with its safety valve removed and temporarily sealed. That evening, despite a permit explicitly forbidding its activation, a lapse in communication left Pump A vulnerable. This oversight, coupled with the disappearance of the permit among the night shift's bustle, set the stage for disaster. Piper's Alpha defense against fire relied on an automatic system powered by diesel and electric pumps. But the initial explosions knocked out the electric pumps, shifting control to manual to protect divers in the vicinity. This decision, based on procedural caution, left the platform at the mercy of its remaining defenses. Amidst this chaos, the platform's fate was sealed by a tragic combination of human error and procedural oversight. Panic kicks in. At around 9:45 p.m., unforeseen troubles loomed. Problems with the methanol system earlier in the day birthed a new menace. Methane clathrate, a flammable ice, clogged the gas compression system pipework, halting the relentless churn of condensate pump B. With the platform's very power supply hanging by a thread, the manager raced against time to resurrect the faltering pump. In a desperate scramble, documents were rifled through, searching for any glimmer of hope. Could condensate pump A be the savior the Piper Alpha desperately needed? The clock ticked ominously as the fate of the platform teetered on the brink of oblivion. At 10:04 p.m., amidst the chaos engulfing Piper Alpha, the control room was deserted. In a desperate bid for help, radio operator David Kinraid sounded the distress signal, but the platform's design offered no contingency for such a crisis. The orderly structure collapsed, leaving no recourse for communication or evacuation. Emergency protocols urged personnel to head to lifeboat stations, but the advancing flames thwarted their escape. Seeking refuge, many sought shelter in the fireproofed accommodation block beneath the helicopter deck. Yet, the relentless onslaught of wind, fire, and smoke hindered any hope of rescue. As desperation mounted, 2 brave souls donned protective gear, venturing below deck in a futile attempt to activate the firefighting system, their fate sealed in the inferno's embrace. The fire, sustained by fuel from Tartan and Claymore platforms, raged unabated. Fire erupts even more. As darkness shrouded Piper Alpha, a sequence of events unfolded with devastating consequences. At 10:05 p.m., RAF Lossymouth received the first distress call, prompting the launch of a Sea King helicopter and a Hawker Siddeley Nimrod from RAF Kinloss. At 10:20 p.m., Tartan's gas link ruptured, spewing 15 to 30 tons of high-pressure gas per second, igniting a catastrophic chain reaction. The Theros, a formidable rescue vessel, rushed to aid but faced restrictions due to the potency of its water cannon. By 10:50 p.m., a second gas line explosion occurred, propelling massive flames over 300 feet into the night sky. The Theros, overwhelmed by the heat, was forced to retreat as surrounding machinery and steelwork succumbed to the inferno. At 11:18 p.m., the gas pipeline linking Piper Alpha to the Claymore platform ruptured, exacerbating the catastrophic blaze. By 11:50 p.m., critical support structures collapsed, triggering a cascading destruction. Cranes buckled, followed by the drilling derrick. The generation and utilities module housing the fireproofed accommodation block plunged into the sea, claiming lives in its wake. And by 0:45 a.m., the once proud platform had vanished beneath the waves, leaving behind a scene of unimaginable devastation. The tragedy claimed the lives of 2 crewmen on a fast rescue boat and numerous Alpha crewmen, illustrating the magnitude of the disaster. Speaking of disaster, this is what 6 men on the Byford Dolphin oil rig found themselves in what is considered history's most gruesome diving accident. What began as a routine saturation dive for 6 men turned into a nightmare, leaving only 1 survivor, albeit with severe injuries. Number 2. The Byford Dolphin Incident. On Saturday, November 5, 1983, a team of divers and helpers embarked on a maintenance task in the Fig gas field, located deep in the Norwegian sector of the North Sea. Among them were divers Roy Lucas, Edwin Coward, Truls Hellevik, and Bjorn Bergensen, along with dive tenders William Crammond and Martin Saunders. Their mission? To conduct repairs beneath the rig's surface. Truls and Bjorn descended to a staggering depth of 295 feet to address issues with the rig's bottom frame, employing a diving bell to reach such depth safely. This bell was instrumental, connecting to a series of chambers labeled as Chamber 1, Chamber 2, an escape capsule atop a lifeboat, and a trunk linked to the diving bell. The pressurized chambers were situated on the rig, while the diving bell could be separated to descend to the required depth. This setup allowed for the optimal utilization of time and resources, streamlining the transition between the high-pressure underwater environment and the pressurized living quarters. The divers resided in these cramped chambers for up to 28 days, working, eating, and sleeping there. The bell's operation was overseen by William Crammond and Martin Saunders, who operated it from the rig's exterior. Descending to such depths comes with immense pressure challenges. Each atmospheric increase in depth equates to the rise of approximately 33 feet in water pressure. Truls and Bjorn's dive required them to work at a pressure of 9 atmospheres. Despite the risks, the team diligently managed the air composition in the hyperbaric chambers and closely monitored the divers' activities from the surface. At 4 a.m., after completing their maintenance tasks, Truls and Bjorn commenced their ascent, mindful of the need to match atmospheric pressures upon resurfacing. Meanwhile, their colleagues, Roy and Edwin, prepared to take over the next shift. In the realm of saturation diving, the tenders play a vital role in ensuring the safety of their fellow divers. They're tasked with deploying and retrieving the umbilical, a lifeline connecting the divers to their air supply and communications with the surface. At the Frigg gas field, tenders like William and Martin had been on duty for over 12 hours, ready to assist as Truls and Bjorn returned from the depths. William successfully connected the diving bell to the living chambers, a routine they had performed countless times before. Tragedy strikes. In a deep-sea diving situation, the tenders have an important job. They help with the diver's lifeline, called the umbilical, which gives the diver air and a way to talk to the people above the surface. In the past, tenders also had to connect the diving bell, a safe space for divers, to where the divers live under high pressure. This is what happened on the Byford Dolphin. Tenders are responsible for the safety of the divers. The two tenders were working long hours and were preparing to connect the diving bell with the living space for Trolls and Bjorn, who were coming back from the deeps. William managed to attach the diving bell correctly, and both divers were safely moved to their chamber. Normally, taking the divers out and removing the bell is easy and involves a few steps. Close the diving bell door. Slightly increase the bell's pressure to seal the door. Close the chamber door. Lower the pressure in the connecting space to normal air pressure, and then detach the diving bell. But as you guessed, something went terribly wrong. When William released the clamp too soon, it caused a sudden and dangerous decrease in pressure. The diving bell was wrongfully disconnected, which led to a quick and dangerous situation. The sudden change in pressure pulled Thules right off of his feet and caused chaos. The pressure inside the bell quickly went from high to normal, which made the diving bell shoot out, hitting Crammond and Saunders and seriously injuring them. It's not clear if Crammond made a mistake by himself or was following orders when this happened. Unfortunately, Crammond died from his injuries, and Saunders, despite surviving, was severely injured. His lungs collapsed from his injuries. He also suffered from 3 fractures in his back and a broken neck. The 4 divers inside faced a terrible end. Their deaths were immediate, caused by a sudden return of nitrogen in their blood to gas form, which is akin to their blood boiling. This also led to fat buildup in their organs. The force of the gas expansion caused incredible damage inside the chamber. Hellevic suffered the most because he was closest to the door that malfunctioned. The pressure forced his body through a small opening with incredible force. Unable to fit through, the sheer pressure resulted in the horrifying outcome of his internal organs bursting out of his body through the opening. During the investigation, examiners discovered fragments of Hellevic's spine, windpipe, and small intestine within the bell, strangely intact amidst the chaos. The incident claimed the lives of 5 individuals, leaving little blood despite the severe injuries. Initially, the blame fell on potential miscommunications or fatigue among the crew, but the true cause remained elusive, especially with Crammond's demise. To prevent such tragedies, flawless execution of every operational detail, particularly pressure-driven transfers, is paramount. However, the North Sea Divers Alliance and relatives of the victims accused higher-ups of providing faulty equipment, emphasizing the outdated nature of the pressure chamber system lacking modest safety features. The Byford Dolphin rig, once a significant presence in offshore drilling, was decommissioned in 2016, marking the end of its storied career. And finally, we have number 3, the Paria diving incident. On February 25, 2022, at the Berth 6 platform in Pointe-à-Pierre, Faisal Kurban, Kazim Ali Jr., Rishi Nagasar, Yusuf Henry, and Christopher Bodrum, part of LMCS, were assigned maintenance duties on a dormant pipeline owned by the Paria Fuel Company. This pipeline, a 30-inch U-shaped structure running along the seabed, facilitated oil transport from Berth 6 to Berth 5. Equipped and experienced, the team utilized a diving bell, a cube-shaped habitat, to create a dry workspace over the pipe, displacing water to facilitate their tasks. Unbeknownst to the divers, an inflatable plug had been installed 2 weeks prior to safeguard the pipe, a standard practice known as dead legs. However, this precaution held risks, requiring meticulous planning and monitoring. Despite potential hazards, the team proceeded with their duties, following company directives. As they commenced work, unforeseen consequences unfolded. When Ali Jr. loosened the plug, the pressure disparity unleashed a powerful vortex within the pipe, transforming their workspace into a perilous environment. The sudden rush of water and pressure differential trapped the divers and equipment, propelling them into the narrow pipeline. Amidst the chaotic whirlpool of water and oil, they fought for survival, eventually finding refuge in an air pocket within the line, where they could catch their breath and assess their predicament. Christopher Bodrum, the sole survivor, vividly recounts the harrowing ordeal faced by the trapped divers. He was confused inside a 1,200-foot-long pipe, trying to find his way out and not really sure whether he was heading in the right direction. He was only able to rely on hope. Trapped in darkness. Trapped in darkness, their struggles were recorded by a GoPro, capturing their desperate efforts to survive. Disagreements on the direction of their entry compounded their challenges, but they resolved to work together to escape. Christopher, the least injured, took charge, guiding his comrades through the treacherous conditions.
I ain't 35 too. I'm trying to come up. Yeah. You're right behind me, man. You're right behind me? Come on, all I mean, let's figure it out. We gotta go. We gotta start moving.
Christopher gave them hope, yet he knew it was a tough journey ahead. Almost impossible. Navigating through the slick, cramped confines of the pipe proved agonizing, compounded by injuries and discomfort. Their progress was slow, each step fraught with danger and uncertainty. Along the way, they discovered oxygen tanks, providing a glimmer of hope amidst the chaos. However, rising water levels and limited resources forced Christopher to make a heart-wrenching decision to continue alone in search of help. Leaving his companions behind, Christopher pressed forward, grappling with the uncertainty of his own survival and the fate of his friends. His journey through flooded sections tested his resolve, but a stroke of luck led him to another oxygen tank, offering a lifeline in the darkness. Despite the challenges and the grim reality of their situation, Christopher pushed on, driven by the hope of rescue and the desperate need to save his companions. As Christopher navigated through the dark confines of the pipe, he encountered another air pocket, yet he knew his only hope lay in returning to the riser. Despite his determination, the dangerous conditions, no light or direction, no space to maneuver, and a dwindling air supply, all tested his resolve. He said to himself, "God, I'm coming. Ma, look for me." With burning eyes and throat and aching limbs, he pressed on through the slick, watery pipeline. Unfortunately, this section was partially flooded, but he found another air tank and reached the last flooded segment before the riser. This gave him hope, and he motivated himself saying, "No, we're not going to die. We're coming out of here, boy. We have to get out of this. God is good." As he prepared to proceed, luckily, Faisal caught up with Chris and called out, "Chris, please wait for me." However, mindful of their dwindling time, Chris knew he couldn't delay any longer. They discussed their likely destination, with Chris opting to move forward alone towards potential salvation. After ensuring Faisal had an oxygen tank, Chris continued through the water, determined to find a way out. The struggle continues. With exhaustion setting in and the physical toll mounting, Chris pressed on, fueled by his determination to save his crew. Battling the burning sensation of oil and fatigue weighing him down, he finally reached the top of the pipe. Despite surviving the ordeal, Christopher's challenges were far from over. Despite recounting the details to medical staff, the rest of the LMCS team struggled to believe his story, assuming the pipeline was filled with oil and any available oxygen would only last an hour. Speaking of oxygen, for Faisal, he was by this time breathing his last breath as the oxygen in his tank couldn't sustain him any longer. He died, struggling and waiting for help from Chris, who unfortunately never showed up. Rescue divers attempted to locate the trapped men, providing them with hope by responding to their knocks. However, as time passed, rescue efforts faltered, leaving the 4 injured divers to endure their ordeal alone, trapped at the bottom of the ocean in the dark pipe. Days later, the company retrieved the remaining bodies, but the circumstances surrounding their deaths remained uncertain. An inquiry was launched to investigate the Paria diving tragedy, with Christopher testifying about his harrowing experience, shedding light on the horrific events that unfolded. Would you be able to endure the darkness, the pressure, the fight for air, the desperation to live? Let me know what you would do in the comments section down below. And don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel. And speaking of bells, don't forget to click the notification one so you're always up to date as soon as I drop new content just for you. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.